bringing you in-depth discussion from one of the rad groups of online writers covering the Edmonton Oilers. Are you ready for Oilers Overtime? Join us as we talk news, rumors, trades, player grades, game results, and more. All featured on one of the most glorified teams in the NHL. From the great one to the next one. From the boys on the bus to the decade of darkness. This is Oilers Overtime.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of THW Oilers Overtime. My name is Jim Parsons here with the HockeyWriters.com. We've got Colton Pankiw with us as well. Colton, how are you?
I'm good, Jim. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm a little saddened by the news of Evander Kane that we got today. As people watch this, it will be a little bit over 24 hours removed from when he was injured. But freak kind of accident happens in the game against Tampa Bay. Good news is the Oilers win that game. It was not a must win, but a really important win. Doesn't put them at 500, but puts them a couple games above 500. But yeah, Evander Kane, he's going to be out for 3 to 4 months. Kind of had a procedure done to fix a very deep cut on, I'm not sure if it was exactly in his wrist or his arm or something, but it was bad. Probably, I'm assuming an artery or something was cut, but he's out for 3 to 4 months, which is going to be huge news, a huge loss for the Oilers, which we're going to talk about today. So I think maybe what I'll do is ask you first, did you see the play live?
I kind of noticed that he went down awkwardly, and then you could tell something kind of was up the way he skated to the bench, but I didn't realize the severity of it. I thought he had got hurt. He kind of had went down awkward before, but no, I didn't realize nearly how bad it was until you heard the announcers kind of mentioning that it looked like he was bleeding. Yeah,
it was pretty crazy. Like I think he got slew-footed. That's a whole other thing, but he goes down, and I thought he was staying down because I'm like, okay, well, he's either trying to draw a penalty or he's got the wind knocked out of him or whatever. Then all of a sudden he just alerts up really quickly. Like he's just like, oh crap, something's not right. And he knows immediately that he's cut badly. And you can see him skate to the bench. And Gene Principe, who was doing the broadcast for Sportsnet, he says, all that anybody heard was Evander Kane skating to the bench as fast as possible, going, help, help, help. Like he knew it was bad. And so they got immediate medical attention. He puts out a statement today thanking the Tampa Bay medical staff and everybody else involved in all of that to make sure that he got attention as quickly as possible off to a medical center or hospital or whatever. And so he's going to be okay. That's the good news here, is that he's going to be okay. This is not a career-threatening thing, although who knows? It's too early to speculate how it might affect him. We'll see, but he's going to be back, and he'll be back this season probably sometime around February. So I suppose that's the good news, is that overall healthy-wise, he's going to be okay. The bad news is he's out for a long time. So Oilers pulled off a win, even without him at the end of the game there. But how big a loss is this for the Edmonton Oilers?
It's huge. I mean, I think you've seen kind of right around that time that they signed him last year was when they really got going. Like they were in a serious rut before that, and he came in, and obviously we know the pace that he was scoring goals at. It was pretty much every other game, and then in the playoffs even better than that. So I think kind of compared to what everyone was expecting, he was maybe off to a bit of a slow start this season. He'd kind of been picking it up these last few games, but I mean, he's outside of McDavid and Draisaitl, probably their most offensively gifted forward. So I think it's just a huge loss, those goals. And then just the toughness too. Like he brings so much more to that team than just his offense. He kind of patrols things out there. He brings a different like physicality that not really many other forwards on the team possess. So it's a huge loss.
Yeah, it's funny how you're not the first person I heard say that he kind of wasn't producing all that well. He had 12 points in 13 games. It's not like he was producing badly, but it's just we were so used to seeing those 40 whatever games that he played last season for the Oilers and how much he produced, and then like another 12 goals in the playoffs. He was so good that when you get like a point a game, everybody's like, oh man, what a disappointment. I thought he was playing fine. He just didn't have, like, he had a goal called back in one of his other games that I think should have counted. It was that whole weird interference thing that they said he got pulled into the goalie or whatever. He gave up an empty netter so that Connor McDavid could get a hat trick in another game. So he could have easily had 2 more goals already this season. So I thought he was playing great. Was he as productive as he was when he came here? No, but I thought he was really good. But I'm with you on the whole. It's not just the goals and the point production. He's one of the few people on that roster who will get right in your face. Like, there are some people who play unafraid, but Evander Kane goes at you, and the Oilers don't really have that. They don't have people who are going to get in there, muck it up, grind, really kind of intimidate in a way. Darnell Nurse can do it, but who knows how effective they want him to be at that when he's supposed to be playing, over 20 minutes a game, right? So yeah, it's a big loss. Do you think there's anybody on this team that will be able to step up in either one of those two roles? I mean, first let's talk about the point production, and then maybe we'll talk about the physicality. Who do you see as an option on this roster to step, because he was a legitimate top six person. Like, he was not playing middle six, bottom six at all. He was top two lines every game. Who can step into that role?
Well, there will be some opportunity for a number of guys. I think you've seen Puljujarvi and Yamamoto taking a lot of heat, and I think this is kind of a chance for them to really kind of change that narrative and get going. Neither have really had strong starts to the season. Obviously, you've seen Warren Fogle last game kind of start to get going, so hopefully he can continue that. I don't think he's probably a top six option for moving forward, but again, he's kind of a guy that could contribute more in that bottom six. Dylan Holloway, perhaps. I don't think anybody's going to be able to contribute to the level of Evander Kane, but I think if they can kind of get a group effort from those guys to kind of help chip in, because it has been kind of Nugent Hopkins, Hyman, McDavid, Draisaitl, Kane. There hasn't been a lot of offense from the rest of their guys. So I think if kind of everyone can chip in by committee, that can help lessen the blow.
Yeah, I am wondering if you listen to Jay Woodcroft, head coach of the Oilers, his comments after the game, Warren Fogle played his best game on Tuesday. Absolutely. Like, that was the best game he's played, maybe as an Oiler, definitely this season, but maybe as an Oiler. And he was out on the ice at the very end of that game. He was the key in the block shot there that sent it back towards the net. Didn't go in for an empty netter, but he stopped, Tampa Bay from being able to catch up. That was an important game. I think Woodcroft thinks that Warren Fogle might have the ability to, maybe not every day, but to, on a regular occurrence, get slotted into that top six. And I found Fogle's game to be quite effective. He has not been able to produce. He got his first goal on Tuesday, which was a nice goal shorthanded, but he hasn't really given a lot of point production. He's a good guy to have, though, on a line with someone like Connor McDavid. I just don't know if he's going to be able to produce the points. Puljujarvi's been getting some chances, but he's not finishing on them, and that really concerns me, because he seems to always be just like a stick length out of position to hit that, one-timer. He's not quite able to accept the pass on a regular. There's something off there. Like, he's getting opportunities. I hope he can do it. I don't know what's up with the Yamamoto. I can't believe he doesn't have a goal yet this season. Like, it's insane how he can play inside your jersey and he can get really in there and be physical, and he's got some assists, but he has not scored yet. This is a 20-goal guy who they are expecting to produce points, and he's already kind of in your top six. So I don't know what that means exactly. What about physically, though? Is there anybody that you think can step into that role? I mean, we talked a little bit about Darnell Nurse, but that's a defenseman. Is there a forward who can do what Evander Kane can do in that respect?
Honestly, I don't think they have that. I think last season, like, if they had the same roster, you're hoping that maybe a guy like Zach Kassian could step up. Obviously, they got rid of him, just cap reasons and whatnot, but I don't think there's anyone that can bring that same level of physicality. I think a guy like Zach Hyman is a guy that kind of gets in there more than maybe given credit for and can mix things up a bit physically. Obviously, he doesn't have like the size and the strength of a Kane, but I think that's probably an area that they're going to miss a lot, and whether they look to address that with someone in the AHL or maybe even a trade. But yeah, I don't think they really have that without him.
Well, we'll get to the idea of a trade here in a minute, because I think it's going to be a complex issue that is not an easy, let's go out and do this. But Zach Hyman's an interesting choice, because people are probably going to remember that Dallas game where Jamie Benn was kind of right up in his grill and all in his face. You remember that? And he's picking on him. And I'm going to chalk that up to Zach Hyman going, why would I take a penalty here? That's just stupid for me to retaliate. But it shows people, or at least a lot of people believe, that he's not going to do that. Like, he's absolutely not going to get in there and do what Evander Kane would do. I almost said Patrick Kane. Do what Evander Kane would do in that situation. So I don't know. I honestly, in answering my own question, I don't think there is. I don't think there's anybody on this roster. And those types of forwards are really hard to find. Like, that's why the Oilers were so keen on trying to see if Evander Kane's reputation was not necessarily the truth, and wanted a forward like that, because they're very hard to find. That's just not a thing that you see where that much skill and that much grit and determination is packaged into one player. It's going to be really difficult. As far as a trade goes, Man, I don't know. I just don't see an immediate reaction from fans is going to be, well, go make a trade. We can get something. We've got 5.5 or whatever in cap space now, but it doesn't really work that way, right? The Oilers don't have that because one, they were playing with a shortened roster, and two, he's coming back in February. If all things go well, maybe he's even a little earlier than that. But the trade deadline's around then, and they don't get the luxury of him coming back only for the postseason where the salary cap wouldn't count. They're going to have to work it back into the roster somehow. So if you add extra salary at this point, and then you bring Evander Kane back in February, you need to make room for Evander Kane in February. They don't have it. So maybe you can add somebody physical that you can later waive or try to trade. You could trade for a player, but I don't know that you can count on the fact that you'd move some other money off the roster. Like, I'm not sure that you can send a Kyler Yamamoto or Jesse Puljujarvi or whomever to another team for nothing. I don't even know if other teams can take that kind of money right now. Like, I really don't know if you can do anything if you're Ken Holland. Do you see there being potential for the Oilers to go out and externally add somebody, like to bring in a player that could, because I don't know that you're going to get anybody that's going to play in your top six.
Well, like you mentioned with LTIR there, like we've seen like Vegas last year, they tried to just like add guys, and then all of a sudden they had guys that are ready to come back, and it just turned into a complete like debacle. They had 17 skaters at certain times last year. Like, it just didn't work out. So I don't think that's the best. I think that's a really short-sighted kind of move to do. Like you said, if a team is willing to take on a Yamamoto contract, a Puljujarvi contract, maybe even Tyson Barrie, if there's a defenseman coming back, if that's the area they look to add to. But other than that, no, I don't think you can just account for Kane's cap hit and look to bring in a guy. Because like you said, once he's back, then you're just in a whole other situation of having to move a guy and, again, shortened rosters and all that. So again, I don't think that that's necessary to make a trade just yet. I kind of still want to give it a few months here, see how things play out. And I'm still kind of in the position that if they need to add someone, I think looking at to bring in someone on the back end is probably more important to this team.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, if you were to try to make a trade and you did have to wind up moving Yamamoto or Puljujarvi or Fogle or whoever, you wouldn't just have to give them away. You'd probably have to add a sweetener to do it, right? Like, it's not like they're having enough trouble getting anything for these players, period. Like, Jesse Puljujarvi was shopped in the offseason. Everybody knows that. The return wasn't there. That's why Ken Holland didn't make the trade. I don't know that you can give away Warren Fogle, who's got another year on his contract after this one. You probably have to convince a team to take that salary by adding a draft pick to that. So no matter what you do, I think if you're Ken Holland, you're going to have fans all over you going, why wouldn't you get somebody else to fill in for Kane? He's out for 4 months. Or you're going to have, okay, well, we did, and now we can't dump this person, or you had to dump this person by giving away a draft pick to do it. He's in a tough spot. Like, this is really, it's unfortunate that's going to happen. Again, the biggest positive here is that Evander Kane is going to be okay and he will be back. It doesn't seem like this is going to shorten his career or anything like that. But I think this is a pickle for the Oilers. I don't know what they're going to do in terms of, maneuvering around. There's the hope here, and knock on wood, is that somebody that is on this roster goes, okay, I got to step up. Like you said, 2 or 3 people got to step up a little bit, and, by a group, collective, come together and kind of replace some of those points. But I don't know if there's a person on this roster. I mean, it sure would be nice if Dylan Holloway had started off this season like he played training camp. Do you think that there's a potential for him to step into this role, or are we seeing kind of the real Dylan Holloway here, that he's struggled, he's made some bad mistakes, he's been hit a lot, he does play physical, and I don't think he's getting credit for how much he tries to hit people, but he doesn't have the size that Evander Kane does. He's got the speed. He's got speed to burn for years and age, but I don't know. Like, is he even possible for a person who could step in there and kind of go, okay, well, we're going to give you a shot here. Let's see what you can do.
Based off what I've seen so far, no, I don't think so. I was really kind of tempered in my expectations for him this season, like what you've seen throughout the summer and then training camp. I think that maybe I think we've talked about this before too, like a bit too much expectations placed on him. Like, he's still really young and he didn't get to play much last season in his first year as a pro just due to injury. So I just don't see him being ready for that role yet. I don't think it's necessarily fair to him to try and put him into that role too much. I think they have some other guys that could be capable. Like, I think Yamamoto started off slow last year and got better as the season went on. So I think he's a guy that potentially could step up and be that guy, but the inconsistencies are worrisome. But yeah, I personally don't see Holloway being that guy yet. I think he is going to become a good player. I just don't think that time's right now.
Well, the Oilers called up Mattias Janmark and Klim Kostin today. There was that trade. If people don't remember, Dmitry Samorukov went to St. Louis. Kostin comes over from the Blues to the Oilers. They called up both of these players. Tyler Benson is injured right now, but he's going to probably be something that comes around the corner here, because if you put him on waivers, which you'd have to do to send him to the minors, and he's claimed you're going to lose him for nothing. So I think the Oilers would probably look at him too. Those are the three players that I think we're going to see first to get put on this roster. Do you see potential? I don't know Klim Kostin's game very well. I didn't watch a lot of the Blues. I don't really have a good handle on the type of player that he would be. I don't know if you do or not. Do you believe, and Mattias Janmark was signed sort of as a guy who could play penalty killing minutes and be a depth forward, and he just hasn't played. Like, he hasn't been given any opportunities at all. Is there anything there? Like, what are we looking at here? Are we looking at people who are coming in on the bottom line, and then something like a Derek Ryan hops up and plays middle, and then somebody on the third line, whether it's Puljujarvi, hops up and plays top two? Like, is that what we're looking at here? Can Mattias Janmark, Kostin, or maybe Tyler Benson even be a difference maker here?
So Janmark, I would say no. I think he's got more than a big enough sample size in the NHL where you kind of know what he is at this point. Like you said, kind of a fourth line penalty kill guy. Kostin's intriguing. Like you said, I don't know a ton about his game either, but you see like that he is a former first round pick. He's had good numbers in the minors, so the skill's there. With the Blues, obviously kind of playing in a fourth line role when he did get the opportunity. So be curious to see what he could do if given the opportunity. That said, I don't know if he's up for it. I don't know a ton about his game. And sorry, remind me again, who is the third one?
Tyler Benson. So he had a pretty good training camp, and he was hurt partway through it. I thought he was playing really well, actually. Like, it looked like he was sort of turning a corner in his development. We've all been sort of waiting for Tyler Benson to kind of come around. He had this huge prospect pedigree. He was a fantastic goal scorer in almost every level that he played at, but he just hadn't done anything yet. There was always this talk that, oh, Benson, if you put him on waivers, someone's going to take a chance on him. Someone is going to see his potential and give him a shot. And it's never happened. They've always put him on waivers, or they've done something. Nobody's claimed him. But he got injured in training camp, and he looked pretty good. Like, there were a couple games where he played really well. So I don't know if he's ever going to make that transition and he's going to take that jump and be a NHL regular. I don't know, but he's coming off of an injury here pretty quickly. I don't know if it's right away or a week or two, but it looks like he's going to be an option for them.
Yeah, I think for me last year with Benson, I thought that was kind of his year if he was going to do anything. And I don't know. I want to root for him and everything. He's a likable guy. I think the foot speed for me just isn't enough to be a top six guy in the NHL. And I think he tried last year to kind of fall into that bottom six role and just be a bit more physical and mix things up a bit. But I don't know. I think kind of at this age, I'm not thinking that there's going to be a hole out there. I hope he proves me wrong. But from what I've seen last season, I'm not too high on him.
With Kane going down and the salary cap that gets freed up here for the Oilers, I believe their first play is probably going to be to just not shorten this roster anymore, right? Because the Oilers were playing with well below the man games or the allowable roster size. You talked about Vegas playing with 17 skaters. So the Oilers were like 18, 19, things like that. I'm assuming they're going to have a full roster now, but my question for you is, what would you do if you're Woodcroft? Because we're talking now about how we don't really see a player that can come in and replace Evander Kane or give you anything near what Evander Kane was giving you. Do you still go like 11-7 if you're the Oilers? Like, you talked about how their defense is still a major need, even with Evander Kane down. What do you do here? Like, are you going, okay, well, we're not going to find a forward that's going to come in here and replace him. So why are we trying to fit a square peg into a round hole? We should just keep focusing on working our goals against and getting it down. Let's get our guys out there. I thought Ryan Murray had a decent game. I didn't think he had many good games at all prior to Tuesday, but I thought he played really well on Tuesday. Would you keep playing 11-7, or would you try to get more forwards in there and split up the ice time and just hope and cross your fingers if somebody clicks?
Honestly, I think kind of just sticking with what they've been doing. Obviously, Woodcroft, we knew last season coming in is big on the 11-7 thing. And I think, like, while Kane is a big loss, I don't think it's something that necessarily has to be like the downfall of this team by any means. I think they still have two of the best players in the world. They have Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has looked a lot better to start this season than he did a year ago. Zach Hyman obviously has been incredible. So I think if those four can kind of keep going as they are, or maybe even a bit of an uptick from Nugent-Hopkins and Hyman if possible, but then you get a few of those other guys kind of putting up a bit more offense. Like Darren Ryan's been okay. Ryan McLeod, some games has looked
Ryan
good.
McLeod's been awesome.
Yeah,
I think he's been fantastic.
So if you kind of can get some of those guys to chip in, like I said earlier, I think the 11-7 is fine, at least for now. Like, and again, if you try that out and you go on a bit of a skid like they just had recently here, then maybe mix things up. But I think for now, I expect Woodcroft to stick with the 11-7.
Are you at all concerned about the ice time for some of these guys? Because you've already got McDavid, Draisaitl playing a lot. Hyman, Nugent Hopkins are probably are going to have to play more. Is that a concern at all? Or are these guys just like so conditioned that they're going to play this much that it's not big a thing? I expect that we'll see McDavid and Draisaitl a lot more together than they have been. They've been able to play a lot of these games without having to load that line. And more often than not, they do it sometimes. They'll do it on the power play if they're down and they're trying to catch up. I expect we'll see this a lot more. Are you at all worried about the ice time?
Maybe from some of those guys that aren't quite as used to like the huge minutes that could be coming their way, but we've seen with McDavid and Draisaitl in the past, like they at times under even different coaching regimes have played, like Tippett especially, it seemed like they played crazy minutes sometimes and like 25 minutes a game certain points of the season. So I think those two are just such elite and talented players, and especially a guy like Draisaitl who doesn't always exert the most energy on the ice, and not in a bad way. It's just kind of he's able to slow things down and just plays a different style. So I think he's a guy that you can count on playing a lot of minutes, and he's still good to go next shift. I mean, even in the playoffs last season, he was playing tons of minutes, and you've seen how hurt he was. So I don't really worry about those two. It will be interesting to see kind of how the rest of the lineup responds with the uptick in minutes and if they're able to handle it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think these guys are so well conditioned at this point and so used to playing the minutes. And there's that motivation. Like, I know people have been all over Evander Kane and whatever. You can tell that these guys like him. Like, They absolutely think he's an awesome teammate. I think they were all really, really, I mean, why wouldn't you be super concerned when he went down? Because that was scary, right? But I think they're going to miss him. I think he's if you ever watch footage of him at practice, he's really goofy with the guys. They do play fighting. I think he's a positive influence around that locker room, despite the reputation that he apparently had with every other team that he ever came from. I think they're going to miss him a lot in that respect. But do you worry at all about, I know maybe it's too early to speculate. It's probably not even fair to bring this up, but do you have any concern at all that he is going to be a different player after this? Because we saw, maybe not comparing him to Ilya Mikheyev is fair, but he had a similar injury. He was out 3 to 4 months. He hasn't done anything since he's come back. Like, he's not been nearly the type of player that I think a lot of people would have thought. Any concern at all that this is going to be something that could be a factor for Evander Kane moving forward?
I think it's kind of hard to know right now just because of how early it is still. You don't have full things. Like, I always go back when I kind of hear about these injuries to like when McDavid a few years ago had hurt his PCL, I think his knee there against the Flames in that last game of the season. And kind of throughout the beginning of summer, at least, you kind of heard like, yeah, it's not a big deal. He's fine. And then as time went on, you realized how serious the injury actually was. So it'd be kind of curious to see what starts to happen like in a month, 2 months, whatever. But I think at this time, it seemed like everything they're not too concerned about it. Like, he's going to be fine. And they said that he'll be able to return and not really suffer anything from it. So until I hear differently, I think he will be fine. The only thing I'd be a bit concerned about is that's a long stretch to go without playing games. So just kind of the rust factor, I guess, once he gets back and how long it'll take him to get back up to speed. The good thing is lower body's still good, so he can stay conditioned and everything, but still kind of just not being able to get those reps in. It might take him a while to get back up to game speed.
It's a good point, but I will remind you of this too. When he was in San Jose and he didn't play for a long time, right? Yeah, he went down to Barracuda and played for a little bit. It didn't do a whole lot there, I don't think, but he came up, joined the NHL, joined the Oilers, was like a house on fire. He was honestly like, and that was after a few months of not playing. So he's clearly a guy who just will, if he's got the health and he's okay, should be able to pick up right where he left off. So that's the good news. Yeah. How much do you think this is going to feel? It's such a strange thing to feel like he's going to be another trade deadline acquisition. That's how the Oilers are going to have to look at this, right? When he comes back in February, it's going to be like getting him at the trade deadline again, even though they got him a little earlier last season. Is that a huge pick me up for them, or that's way too far down the line to even be thinking about at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be. Obviously, like, hopefully it doesn't come to the point where it's like they're bringing him back in hopes that he can almost kind of save the season. Like, you'd like to see them continue just rolling, and by the time he gets back, they're well in a playoff spot and they've been playing solid and everything. And then adding him goes from bringing them to, say, a good team to back to the cup contending status that everyone considered them to be entering the season. Again, I think it's a tough loss, but I do think this team is good enough, just McDavid and Draisaitl alone, to keep things going without him. And then, yeah, like you said, I think it'll be a huge pickup. And honestly, like, it could end up being a positive where you look at it and he's able to be rested. He's back 100% healthy and ready to go basically come the playoffs. So hopefully it can end up being a positive thing for them.
Well, they're going to have their hands full because they got a Carolina here on Thursday. They've got the Florida Panthers on Saturday, Los Angeles Kings on Wednesday. They'll have a little break between Saturday and Wednesday. Let's take to close things off, a quick prediction of what's going to happen here in Carolina. So Thursday night, they play the Hurricanes, which a lot of people coming into the season figured maybe Oilers Hurricanes in the final. That'd be cool. What do you think of this game? What's your prediction? No Evander Kane, but we're going to see a couple new faces probably. And they're going to be playing a pretty tough team in Carolina.
I think, I mean, it's obvious, but I think that win against Tampa is just huge because it ends that losing streak and shows like how good of a team they can be. Obviously, Tampa's, if not the best team roster-wise in the league, definitely one of them. So I think they're able to build off that. And I think the other thing going for them is that Jack Campbell finally really kind of looked like the guy that they were hoping they were getting this offseason. So I'm hoping that that's kind of the game that gets him going. He's able to build off of that. So I'll say that the Oilers come out on top in this one 4-2.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, you're right. We didn't even touch on Jack Campbell and the backstory to the game that nobody's talking about was just how good he was. Right. And that's been something the Oilers fans have been waiting for long. I stirred a lot of people up with my article about a trade of Jack Campbell just because I'd seen some people in Toronto talking about bringing him back home. I thought, I have to write this, but man, did I make some people angry. But Jack Campbell played great. I thought he was really good on Tuesday, and hopefully that's a good positive sign. I don't know if he starts on Thursday. Do we know? Is he going to be playing that game?
I think just because he's the guy that they brought in and gave that money to, I think from my perspective, it's almost like you kind of have to just to kind of show him that he is still your guy. You're confident in him, all that. But no, I haven't seen anything confirming that.
Yeah. And I mean, Stuart Skinner just played a lot more and he had a rough outing the other night. So it's not his fault necessarily, but it just was one of those games where his save percentage was so high. He was like right at the top of the league, and now he's kind of right back down to earth with that game. So, I'm hoping they play Campbell. I want to see 2 games in a row. If he plays really well, that's a huge boost for the Oilers, right? Like that's really important that they get a goaltender who feels like they're okay. I got my game, and that's for him. Like he said it, he's like, I have not played nearly my grade A game. I got to find it, and I'm going to bring it. And if he can get a couple, successful starts in a row in there, I think that's going to be really good. I'll go with the Oilers too. I'm going to say this is a closer one. Andrei Svechnikov really lit up the Oilers the last time these two teams played. I expect that he's going to have another big game for whatever reason. He plays really well against them. I'm going to go 5-4. I think it'll be a close one. I think there's going to be lots of goals. I do think the Oilers are probably feeling pretty good. I think in the first game without Evander Kane officially in the lineup, they're going to want to come out strong, play a good game, whether or not you want to say for him or whatever, but I think they'll have a good game. I'm going 5-4 Edmonton. So we're both thinking positively against a really tough team in Carolina. We'll see how it goes. Colton, thank you. Appreciate it. We focused mostly on Evander Kane here, which should have been expected after what happened here on Tuesday. But for everybody else, when we get back to this show on a regular basis, we will be talking all things Edmonton Oilers, including where we're at with Evander Kane. If we get any more news, we'll talk about that too. This has been another edition of THW Oilers Overtime on the Hockey Writers. Check out the YouTube channel. Check out all the other videos and the content, thehockeywriters.com. Colton's articles, my articles, news and rumors, everything else. We'll talk to you folks next time. Another edition of THW Oilers Overtime.